This story begins with the everyday life of Takaru, the protagonist, who travels from home to work and from work back home. The same as always. While being at home, he turns on the television, and we see a man sitting at a table. Tak tells us that although having a normal life turns out to be a relief, very deep down there is something different happening, something out of the ordinary, and at that his glasses shine, and he appears in front of the man on the television, asking for his identity. The man tells him that he is the supervisor of the solar system, something similar to a god or like a mid-level manager of the universe. This sounds more realistic to the protagonist. The manager tells him that on the planet Mateus everything turns out badly for him no matter how well he does it, and that civilizations are collapsing one after another, so they had to intervene. Holding a teapot, he shows him that in that world, by simply letting it be a single drop, everything can be caused to change and that he will be that drop. Takaru gets scared by the sudden way of asking him for it, but the manager tells him that the pole is stiff and that if he does not go his soul will disappear. He complains to him for saying it in such a cold way, but the manager tells him that he will not send him empty-handed and that he will grant him whatever gifts he wants. Tak asks him what he means by gifts. The manager suggests using magic and asks him what else he desires, to which he asks for an adorable companion and is told that he will meet someone along the way. While he is at it, he will improve his exploration skills so that he can sell materials, and he will give him a handy bag so that he can collect them. In addition, he will master the language of the world and he will be resistant to various things. Resistant, but not to death, since his body begins to fade, so the manager realizes that it is already time, and when he was going to give him another gift, he realizes that he put too many on him. He also wishes him very good luck with the companion who fell to his lot, but he calms him by saying that everything will turn out well, and thus he says goodbye. Let us change the scene to a forest where a man is sleeping. That hair looks familiar to me, but when he wakes up all confused, we see that it is, in this, the protagonist. After a while he asks himself what he ought to do, starting by getting to his feet and by looking for a place where people live, and after so much walking he manages to reach a settlement. But he realizes that without money they will not give him anything at all to eat. But he remembers that the manager improved his exploration ability so that he could sell materials. Coming out of the bush, he grabs a branch, exclaiming exploration magic. But nothing whatsoever happens. Takaru, worried, asks himself if he made a mistake in reciting it. So he starts writing the words on the ground, and upon pronouncing the word search we see several symbols appear in the place, supposing that this indicates to him where there are materials. Upon realizing that the magic is activated with the appropriate word, perhaps there is a way to search with more details. Reciting the words find out, investigate, and scan, he manages to open a window with the data of the flower. Akaru, happy because of how useful it is, stores the B-rank flower and decides to take everything that the symbols point out, obtaining plants and mushrooms, but all of them have a low rank. Then he notices a very rare stone, and the cinnamon sticks, no, the channels? He is surprised to see that its poop is of a very high rank. Leaving that aside, he remembers everything he learned. The clovers indicate plants to him, the hearts indicate objects coming from animals, and the diamonds indicate minerals. So, happy with everything he collected, he asks himself for how much he will be able to sell it. And seeing that it is night, it will be better for him to go to the village. By the way, we see how, from the sky, other planets can be seen. Upon arriving, the guard at the gate approaches him and asks him if he is a traveler. He introduces himself with his name, Takaru. The guard realizes that he is very tall and asks him if he is a warrior or a swordsman, to which he responds that he only comes to sell materials. The guard mentions that it is rare to see someone specialized in gathering. The guard introduces himself as Marl and as part of the guard of Dormy. He mentions to him that they do not have material shops, but the general store sells everything, inviting him to come in. Upon entering, everyone keeps looking at him, at which he only greets them. Upon arriving at the shop, an old man receives him, mentioning that his face does not ring a bell to him and asking if he comes to look for something. Takaru comes closer so that he can buy something from him, showing him the strange stone. The old man recognizes it as excrement of an Ostromegero hammer, and that its hardness, shape, and color are exceptional, offering 5 silver coins. Takeo admits to not knowing how much that is and asks how much a night at the inn costs. The old man replies that 500 reeves, and that 1 silver coin is equivalent to 1,000. The protagonist starts doing the math, realizing that his excrement would be worth 50,000 yen. Without further ado, he accepts the offer and is left puzzled as he sees how the old man rubs his face with the excrement. He asks him if he has anything else to sell him, and he is impressed by the quantity of things, asking why he brings all this in such a remote place. Takeru answers that he only travels gathering materials of all kinds, so the old man gives him a little job, which is to bring him minerals and mithril from the eastern mountain, to which Takeru accepts, asking for a map, and the old man offers him 360,000 yen for everything he is bringing, but he warns him that where he is going there are monsters, leaving the protagonist frightened. At last, at the inn, he can rest, but he would like to be able to bathe. Just then, a worker opens the door to give him hot water so that he can wash his body. He asks her if they do not have a bath, but the young lady says that they do not have anything like that. Depressed, the protagonist hears the worker tell him that some mages can display magic in order to wash people, but that in Torm there is not any. Takeru reacts upon hearing the word magic, and he thanks her for the water, paying more than it costs. When he is alone, he thinks about magic to wash the body, reciting the words, wash, cleanse, and clean. The water begins to surround him and leaves him sparkling, leaving him astonished. But as a bath fanatic, he remains disappointed. The next day he keeps gathering things and comes upon a spade symbol. As it is the first time he sees it, he gets excited, but he ends up finding armor with bones. Frightened, he backs away and returns in order to scan it. Then he notices that it has a familiar amulet, and next to it a note that he cannot ignore. He reads it and then buries the fallen knight along with his sword. In the afternoon he is found drawing circles around himself. When he finishes, he raises a barrier. When he is completely sure, he starts to cook in the open air. Having finished eating, we now see him in the middle of the forest of white trees, also known as that of the ancestral dragons, a very dangerous area full of monsters. Takeru, feeling a little insecure, decides to use like. In this way he creates a sphere of light that lights up the space around him together with those asserts, but he is disappointed at not finding any materials whatsoever. Leaving these aside, he sets himself to gather various seeds from the place. While he is doing so, he asks himself why there are neither monsters nor living beings near him. The only thing that occurs to him is that he stinks. Nevertheless, he does not give it importance and decides to continue on his way, taking advantage of his bad smell, running through the forest until he finds the exit. Excited, he speeds up, but being so excited he does not notice that there is the void. As he falls down the cliff, full of desperation, he tries different spells in order to be able to fly. In one of those he says, fly, and with that he is finally able to land with delicacy. Now that he is down there, he observes that in front of him there is a pile of minerals. He quickly takes out his pickaxe and starts working. Upon collecting a dark mineral, he scans it, discovering that it is silver. He continues searching like that, but there is no trace of mithril. Once again he does search. Upon doing so, one sees that on one stone there appears a sign that is somewhat weak, so he supposes that it is further inside. At that moment he feels a slight tremor. He understands that he ought to get out as soon as possible, but before that he thinks of finding out about that stone. He uses the spell of Furan and throws it against that stone. When it is about to crash, he uses eruption, and with that the place explodes. As he approaches and searches among the rubble, he finds mithril, although a little tiny. Suddenly he again feels a tremor. This seems strange to him, but he does not give it all that much importance and goes deeper into the place in search of more. Walking along a tunnel, he finds a secret spring. When he scans it, he discovers that it is underground magic water of SS rank. Takeru starts to think about how extremely rare that is. While he was thinking about taking a little of the water, from the depths there is heard the roar of a monster that begins to speak to him. Nevertheless, our Takeru does not pay attention to it and keeps thinking that it would be a waste not to take a little of such rare water. Suddenly, a huge wave rises up in the spring and drenches our boy. From it there also comes forth a great beast, very furious for having been ignored. It shouts at him to listen to it. Our protagonist is only left confused, at which the beast is left surprised. It sees that he withstood its pressure. Takeru simply bows and apologizes for having slipped into its home without permission. Here Takeru tells us that since he began to work he bowed to many people, but he never thought that he would bow to a dragon. The imposing dragon laughs and recognizes that he has nerves of steel. Curious, he asks him what our protagonist is. He introduces himself as Takeru Kamisho, a human. The dragon doubts that this is true, since they perceive a surprising magical power, which is the reason why it awoke from its sleep. Our boy, somewhat confused, asks him what he means by that surprising magical power. In the face of this question, the dragon tells him that whatever he may be, his mage is at the level of its own. Our Takeru, not understanding anything at all, asks him if by any chance he is not the ancestral dragon. The dragon confirms this and introduces himself as Boldius. Our protagonist, being rather familiar, asks permission to call him only B. The dragon sees no problem whatsoever, but right there he mentions to Takeru that he would like him to lend him his strength. He mentions to him that with his power perhaps he could bring life to his child. Takeru asks him what he means by that, to which B explains that stagnant and contaminated water prevents the egg from hatching. He makes it clear that he will not ask him for it in exchange for anything, and by giving a light tap to the water he causes many fragments of mithril to rise up to the surface. Takeru is amazed to see the quantity, but leaving that aside, he asks him about the egg that will not hatch. At that instant, Volius draws from the spring a quite large dark egg and hands it to Takeru. He is astonished at its size, but he puts his ear to the egg and manages to hear the heartbeats. Confused, he asks the dragon Walker, and the dragon tells him to pour his magic into the egg, just as he did with that light. So he uses hit. In this way, a great quantity of Takeru's energy begins to be absorbed by the egg. While our protagonist struggles to come out alive, he bursts into loud laughter. Suddenly Takeru loses consciousness and wakes up in a parallel world. Here a voice calls him reckless. Our boy sees a person approaching and asks himself if it is God. Then the person begins to speak and tells him that normally when a dragon appears, people faint or run away, but not our protagonist, who stayed in order to change the laws. Takeru asks him what he is referring to which this person tells him that he has been toying with the world for hundreds of thousands of years, and he propagated his waves in a trice, and this annoyed him a little. He asks him if he remembers the ridiculously absurd blessing that he granted him. This confuses Takeru. But then the man asks him, in that case, if he has not noticed that the adorable one is accompanying him. While Takeru is closing his eyes, that person tells him that it will do him good to suffer a little. In this way our protagonist wakes up, and he hears a strange noise. Alarmed, he gets up, but everything is pitch dark. There he also hears the voice of Boldus, who asks him if he is all right, although he makes a strange noise. Tak stands up and using light, illuminates the whole place. Then he sees a creature with wings. He quickly understands that it is B's child. That little dragon runs to hug him and to lick Takeru. Our protagonist cannot endure such a bad smell, so he pushes him away. Unexpectedly, B asks him to give him a name. Tak hesitates and asks him if in this case it should not be his father who does so. B answers that she has a real name, but he would like him to give him a nickname. Thus we see Takeru think of a name. However, nothing occurs to him until finally something occurs to him, and he decides to call him B, as in the initial B of Black. That little dragon once again jumps to hug him. For his part, he thinks that it is a good name, so, calling the little one by his name, he gives him an order to travel over this vast world to his heart's desire. In this way, officially, B of Black, the child of the dragon, joins the group. Takeru refuses, stressing that he is his son and asking if by any chance he thinks to entrust him to a nobody like him. B answers that he does not have more power than he does, so he knows that he will be fine. Having said this, he casts a spell on his bag and, plunging into the lake, wishes him very good luck. Takeru, for his part, cannot believe that it is true, but oh well. Now, speaking with B, he asks him if he wants to accompany him to gather materials. The little dragon is delighted, which lets one understand that it is a yes. Being so, our protagonist prepares to set out, but before that he uses clean to remove the bad odor from B.